Hey guys, my name is RyanCentral and welcome to HitScan. In this video we're going to highlight everything that we haven't highlighted so far. We've got Yoru Changes that the devs have briefly spoken about that sound exciting and sounds pretty complex and complicated from their side, as well as potential map changes to Icebox, not anytime soon, but at least on the horizon. By the way, you might have noticed in the background a bit of a change in scenery, and that is because this video is sponsored by Display. The first question is of course going to be, what is a display? It's basically a metal poster that you can hang up with magnets on a wall like the ones in the background. Obviously they're VALORANT, here's a Defenders one, here's a Ghost World one, and there's plenty on the website that you can check out. Basically anything and everything, so go give it a look. Point number two, I guess, is that these are held up by magnets. How does that work? Basically you have this piece of paper that you stick to the wall, you stick the magnet to the piece of paper, then of course because the displays are metal, you can stick them to the wall, that you can move them around, and you could swap and switch whichever ones with no hassle and no damage as well, bear in mind. Point number three, there's a sale on 27% for 1 or 2 displays, but if you go over 3, you can get 37% off at least for the next week. Anything after that, you can get 15% off, and the link to get that discount is in the top comment and the description, and it will be added into the checkout, so don't worry about that. And fourth, for every display that you buy, Display will plant a baby tree in Tanzania, Africa, as part of the Trees for the Future Forest Garden project, which, you know, is a win-win. That's only a good thing overall. So definitely check them out, see what's available, and use that discount code at any point that you want to see what's available. And let's talk about Yoru now. There's multiple things that the devs have said that lead on to everything we know about these Yoru changes that are coming. The first actually comes from the myth-busting stream that I did with Raikou, the main character designer that worked on KO, at least sort of led the project, so to speak, where he talks about why Yoru didn't have any buffs in this patch and what is coming in the future and why he's excited about it.
There's some changes that we've been testing for quite some time that we feel really good about. I think just talking about some of the directionality of where we want to do it could be something we do where like there's an element of Yoru that we feel is really important, which is this trickery, this you know, mind gamey type of gameplay, and we want to try to amp that up as much as we can. And so there's a few things we've been testing. There's a couple of abilities that we've scrapped, but overall I think the what we're going to be pushing in the next couple of patches or so it's going to be pretty cool.
But there's nothing else for him as of yet. There's more to come in the future.
No, yeah, the changes have been pretty difficult to test, and so trying to kind of like, there's a few assets that just need to be rebuilt as well because of how things are changing. So that's going to be taking a lot of that time, is like trying to figure out how we can make this intuitive for players when the changes go in, and kind of like, you know, make the audio and the VFX play properly is going to be one of the more challenging efforts we have, but we're really excited to share when we can. And I usually don't like hyping up some of this stuff, but I just when we play test these changes, the first few play tests we've had, when we put them in, it was just like the biggest smile on a lot of people's faces. And so I think we're going to be amping up how much fun Yoru players have, and how you know, maybe hopefully we'll get some new Yoru players in. But yeah, we're keeping an eye on him for sure. We think there's a lot more that can be done with Yoru, and so we're going to try to push as much as we can when we get a chance.
You can clip that, and all of the other clickbait YouTube channels can amp it up. We're ready to go with it. No, that's really cool, because I think Yoru's idea of the agent is really good, but it felt that there was only so much that you could do with his kit currently in the game. So I'm really excited to see the smart changes around it. Some of you might have seen that clip already if you watched the stream, but there's more that all of the devs say about Yoru that I wanted to go into. This came from a Riot Q&A with the influencers at the event. We're not allowed to use the audio, but all of this stuff is on record, so I transcribed it, and this is what they had to say about Yoru. Arcane starts off with the most PR-y answer. It's high on the list, we have some changes coming in a couple of patches, but unfortunately can't give you the exact date yet. Definitely on the top of mind. John Kazicki, who's one of the people that writes a lot of the the State of the Agents articles, actually says, I'm happy to add a bit more color here. There's stuff that we want to do with Yoru, it's just about finding the right time and resources to do it in. The changes that we're talking about require a little more focus to work on, unlike any economy changes to weapons or agents. Arcane adds on top of that, saying it's not just like we're changing the numbers on him, we're looking at the core pieces of his kit and trying to see where we can improve his core loop. John finishes with, it's to be determined, it's top of mind, literally pending, but as soon as we can get some extra resources, we're going to get something out there. So I know all 2 of you Euro players that are watching this are going to be wondering where these changes are we going to be getting them soon? But hopefully you understand that it might not be maybe even next patch or the patch afterwards, but it sounds like these changes that are coming into Yoru are pretty extensive. Based off of everything that the devs have said so far with about having more folks to work on it and resources required, I think a lot of that stuff is going to be animations and the look of abilities. It's like Raikou said earlier on in the video, they're playtesting a set version of Yoru and they're having a lot of fun with it. So probably the thing that we're waiting on now is just making sure that the abilities look right, that it all looks clean. So having the animators, the sound artists, if the abilities have changed, all available to change some of his abilities, I think it's going to be a really good look. I don't know what bits of his kit are going to be changed. I think Gate Crash is fine, the Flash is fine. I'd have to say Fake Out. I think Fake Out might have a whole new makeover, but no matter what these changes are, they sound pretty extensive based off what the devs have said about it. This was a pretty good Q&A that we did with the devs overall, and they actually talk a bit about map changes, which we'll highlight in a second. But the one thing that I wanted to ask that provoked a really interesting discussion is, with all of the balance changes that the devs added into the game with patch 3.0, what was the balance change that people disagreed on the most? And Arcane says it was the number 50. It was the inclusion of 50s in the economy. That was the one that we spent a long time on. It wasn't any of the individual characters. It was, do we add this level of granularity to the economy? We spent what felt like a comically long time discussing the pros and cons of that, but eventually decided that it was important to get us the granularity that we needed to create balanced decisions across the characters. So the follow-up question is, well, what are the cons of the 50 increments and what is the problem? And Arcane just said, it's just more math, which, to be honest, fair enough. He does go on to say that it is harder numbers to work with, the numbers aren't as clean, and it's a little less easy for people to quickly glance at their total money and understand what they can buy. Volcano, who is one of the main producers now, used to work and does still work on a lot of the map design in the game, because obviously he came from Counter-Strike doing stuff there. He said that another conduit would be, if you don't have enough things on the 50 increments money-wise, you end up creating a secondary currency that can only be spent on abilities. Imagine if none of the guns had 50 price points, you're only able to spend those 50 credits now and again on versions of abilities, otherwise you'll have 50 credits left over, for example. And this is where another dev, Aeroplane, actually goes into some of the things that they tested with the economy. We actually tried another version where we doubled all of the money in the game, so instead of having 50s, everything was twice the price, so it would remain at 100 increments. It was a handful of the most confusing playtests we've ever had, where no one understood what they could buy and when they can buy it. We knew that there was going to be pain to individual players having their ability costs go up, but we were all pretty aligned as a team that this was the right move to make and that it was pushing the game in the direction that we wanted. I saw a lot of polarizing comments in the patch video a couple of days ago now saying they've ruined the game. In a vacuum though, the 50 currency increments, do we like that or don't we like it? I personally think this is really, really good. You might not agree that Boombot's gone up to 400 credits, for example, but I do like the Shock Dart's gone from 100 to 150. I think that's really nice. I personally really like it, and I'm glad that the devs have gone in this direction. And the fact that they doubled the economy so a operator would have cost 10,000 credits beforehand is pretty insane overall. So yeah, now that we've gone over that, let's talk about future map changes. The question came to Volcano from me where I said, it's been 2 months now since we've had Breeze. So I wondered, looking at the maps currently in the game, if there's any maps that they're looking at to change, what is the focus for them? Are they pretty content and happy with the state of the maps currently in Valorant? And Volcano gave more of a statement, but it's a good statement to work with, so we'll go with that. He says, we are hard at work on future maps right now, so I don't want to make any promises about any other live balance changes that may be coming in the future. However, we are looking at Icebox in terms of some changes, but there's no ETA on when that would be. I don't really want to speculate on what needs changing. I'd rather leave it to you guys in the comments. But I do feel that whilst there's not a lot of information to work with here, the fact that the devs said, hey, we're still looking at Icebox, we have some changes in mind, but they're not coming anytime soon, I think is good. But also for the fact that they're saying, basically, we're not looking at Split. We're happy with Split, we're happy with Bind, we're happy with Haven, we're happy with Ascent, which I think makes sense. Icebox could certainly do with some love. Breeze seems really, really good. I really like that map. So it does seem that the main focus for Volcano and the map team is getting map number 7 into the game. Certainly before the Champions Finals at the end of the year in December. That would be nice, with enough time to actually play a full 7 map, ban, pick, ban, what's left over. So yeah, Icebox could get some changes, so let me know what you'd like to see. The next change is about underrated changes. There was a lot in this patch, and I think some of them have got a little bit less press, I suppose, than some others. So I wanted to ask the devs from them internally playtesting, and obviously a lot of you guys have got your hands on the changes now, which changes they feel are underrated that people should probably give a lot more attention to. Aeroplane started, he said the Sky changes are a good call. When people play Breach as well, they're going to see he's overall buffed and hopefully feels better to play, so excited to see how he does, especially in solo queue, and hopefully we see him in organized play more. He was a character with 3 flashes with nothing else going on with his kit. He was all about the flashes. It feels like when we played this new version of him internally, that power and impact is a lot more spread across all of his kit, which I definitely agree with, and I really like the stunned utility that they have. Raikou then comes in to say, I'm surprised nobody mentions the operator changes being cheaper. Maybe that's just not a beast that we want to poke, and a couple of the devs laugh at that point. The econ stuff feels like it's been underrated. I'm just curious to see how it all plays out. On the subject of economy, Volcano also chimes in saying that even stuff like pistol rounds could be different, especially for me personally, is what he says. I just go light armor, full utility, but now I need to think more in the buy phase. Do I really want all of my utility on the agent that I'm playing? Because then I have to give up armor. Because of that, your lethal breakpoints are different and you're more vulnerable. So Volcano says he's excited to see the types of variety that we'll start seeing, and also highlights the Bulldog. The price change to the firing rate buff seems to be an underrated change that nobody's talking about. Arcane echoes the sentiment of the econ changes. He says that they will cause some amount of skill gap. We're asking people to make a lot more choices than they had to before. It was one of our core goals here. Make the buy phase more interesting and nuanced around if you want full utility, what do you want to give up? And as a caster, and there's somebody that does color casting where a lot of it is, all right, this is the buy that this team has, they have this ultimates. It does get kind of boring to go, all right, it's a full buy, they have full armor, they have the rifles that they want. Now, if it's a bit more nuanced and you see some people picking up armor but not certain abilities, that makes for a much more interesting game. And I'm super interested to see how that plays out, but I don't think anybody's gonna like it, but I think it's good for the game in the future. It's the broccoli of Valorant, I think, but you know, some of you like broccoli, I don't know. Raikou then says it will be a lot more dynamic for sure. I think people will not be buying the same things that they're buying before the patch, or they're opting into one or the other for utility or guns depending on the round. It's going to be so sick to watch. It's going to be about how you adapt and use utility to give your team the advantage, which again is a great thing as a viewer, but it's going to be really tough to get used to as a player. Especially if you're a Jett or Raze player, you guys were nerfed pretty hard. Of course, the question was asked to Arcane, why did you go after them so hard? And Arcane says, I think they're just agents that we found are overperforming. They're able to do their unique and powerful moments too often at too low of a cost. Between ult point changes and price increases and all their utility, we think that a lot of their play patterns feel right, but it's more just a frequency and a lack of trade-off doing those big high impact plays, and that's what they really wanted to hit. You could tell that this is my first time transcribing a conversation because, yeah, it's a mess, but you get the idea. And a question that I love to ask people like Morello when he was on the team and people like Arcane is, what is keeping you up at night? Not so much what you're scared about with the game, but we have a new patch. What is it that you're keeping a keen eye on to see how people react to it and how people will go about it statistically with the data that they get? Arcane immediately passes the question over to Raikou, and Raikou says, you already know, for me, the biggest one is that we're keeping an eye on a new debuff like suppression and seeing how it affects the game. As we've had KO internally in playtests, we've had our eye on the sentiment of post-plant meta and things like that. In another video, Raikou says that obviously KO isn't there to deal with the post-plant meta because he was in development way before the post-plant meta became a thing, if that makes sense. But going back onto what he said in general, suppression was a hard one internally to work on. A lot of the agency and gaining advantages in Valorant was done with lethality and guns. So how could something that doesn't take that away like a flash or concuss, how is that going to be stronger? How is that going to play in the world on live? I'm curious to see how it works out and how players adapt to it. He also added, we kind of missed the mark on a few things with Yoru, but KO has landed in an awesome spot, and seeing how his balance and how suppression plays out is going to be really exciting. And I agree. Now that you guys have got your hands on KO since the last video, now that he's available everywhere in the world, I think at this point, yes, even Yoru, I am curious on what you guys think of the new agent if you've got your hands on him at that point. But this is what the dev said in the Q&A. I'd like to try and do these in the future for when we have other playtests, but it depends on what you guys think. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and hopefully you found the information about Yoru, balance disagreements, and map changes worthwhile, that you'll like and subscribe and all that jazz. But thanks for watching. Thanks again to Display for sponsoring this video. I absolutely love the posters in my background, and until next time, take care. We'll see you then.